Sometimes I know people think that I may be picky, pick around too much. I don't mean to. I don't mean to be walk around with a cloud over my head. But I do look at the Psalms when we sing. We love our hymn book. I think it ought to be second to our Bible. I'd hate to think what it would be like if we didn't have a hymnal to sing by. I really don't even like to go into churches and have the songs up on the wall. I still like to hold the songbook and go because when it's gone up there, it's gone. But when it's still there in front of you, you can examine it a little bit. We just got through singing something that I just want to. I don't want to be picky, as I said. But we sang that third verse there. It says, "Nothing we need shall be provided." I mean, He will provide, and that's scriptural. But the next line says, "All that we ask," and that's not true. And aren't you glad it's not true? I'm glad that God don't give us everything we ask for, because we're not wise enough to know what to ask for. A lot of times we ask, and now the Bible tells us what we're to do. We're to ask, and God will give it to us. And He tells us that we have not because we ask not. Let me share something that happened last Sunday. We got home from church after the meal, and we settled in, Kyra and I, and she got a text from her daughter over in Virginia, the one we was with 3 weeks ago. And she'd got up to take the dog downstairs, and she had to take it out. Now, they got Bear, everything else over there. I tell you, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I'd want to go out, even with the dog. I might go out with a cannon because you don't know what's going to be out there on the other side of that door when you go out. They live so far back on that mountain that we can't even call them because of the phone service. And she went out and come back in. She felt faint, and she started looking for the bathroom. She let the dog go back up the stairs, and she started looking for the bathroom. And she walked into the walk-in closet and passed out. Hit her head on the wall as she fell down. When she come to, she hollered for her husband. Long story short, she spent 5 hours in the hospital. When she did come to, she lost all of her motivation skills. She couldn't talk. She slurred her speech, and was sure that she had a stroke. And that's the news we got. And it wasn't very long after that. Kyra was trying to call her and couldn't get through. The next bit of news we got that they said that she did not have a stroke, and she did have to go see some more checking, but everything turned out well for her. It wasn't maybe 30 minutes after we got that bit of news that we got a text from my grandson's daughter, my grandson's wife, and she said they was in Adena Hospital with my grandson Eric, and he was in AFib. And then she did text us back a few moments later and tells us that they took her out of the room and they're shocking his heart back, 40 years of age. Okay. Mildred, my wife Mildred, and I raised Eric. And I'm telling you this, I told the church Wednesday night, but I'm telling you this to tell you, you know what, we pray a lot of times, not Thursday night, Wednesday night. We pray a lot of times, and we think, does God hear my prayers? And every day, not just once, but twice a day, in the morning and night, Kyra and I go through our family. We go through our church family. We go through, and sometimes I think, the Bible tells us we're not to pray repetitiously. I'm glad that we prayed for our kids that morning. We don't know. We don't know. And if I could encourage you to do anything at all, is pray. And I don't care how much the devil tries to hinder your prayers. Pray anyway. Pray for one another. Pray for us. I don't think Kyra's much concerned about tomorrow as what I am, but I'm the one who's going to have to sit out in the waiting room while the doctors go punch around on her neck and do their thing. I know it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt me too. I don't want to see her hurt. But you pray for her. Where did we leave Jacob? Not Jacob, Joseph. The life of Joseph. Where did we leave his brothers the last time? Remember? I said this morning, every page we ought to be able to see Jesus. And as I was preparing this message for tonight, and I was coming tonight with the message, I thought, where do I see Jesus in that? I'm going to leave that question unanswered. And when we get through tonight, I want you to tell me, where's Jesus on this page, in this? Now let me just take you back. Genesis chapter 42. We pick up at verse 29. Let me just read a couple of verses to make us familiar where we're at. Let me just tell you this. The boys are coming home. They've been down in Egypt. And there's 9 of them. There's 10 went down, but only 9 came back because Simeon has been locked up in prison. I've read different commentaries on this passage, and those say that he probably stayed in that prison for several months. I don't think I agree with that. I don't know how much grain and food that they could have carried back on their donkeys that they went down with, but I tell you what, I don't think they took enough food back to carry them over for several months. They had to carry food back for the animals and for all the children and the family. And we know that when they got down there, they took 70 out of, or 72 out to take down there. So that's quite a family to take care of. And there's 9 of them. And how much food can you carry on a donkey? Now, they probably had more than 1 donkey apiece, but here they go. And verse 29 says, they came unto Jacob their father into the land of Canaan and told him all that befell them, saying, the man. Little did they realize the man was their brother. The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us and took us for spies of the country. Now, when we left Jacob and his sons, everything seemed to be coming apart or coming unraveled. Tonight, I've titled this, The Negative Attitude. I want us to examine our attitudes tonight. 9 of those boys were headed home. And they're going without Simeon, who's locked up in jail, and that's good for him. I'm glad he's there. I'm just sad that the other 9 wasn't there with him. For a while anyway. Let them learn what it's like, what Joseph has been put through in his past. Maybe they'll appreciate their freedom. Well, anyway, now he's down there sweating it out in the prison. And the good thing is that they were headed back home. They're leaving Egypt now and going back up to Canaan land. They're going home. Boy, I think about it. When I go out and go away, when we take off, we don't get out that much, but when we do, when I'm going away from home, it's not as exciting for me as when I'm coming home. That's when I really, really appreciate it. And if you love your home, you love to be home, that's where you can just, kick your shoes off, sit down in your easy chair, lean back, and enjoy life. But these boys were coming back home, and they had their sacks of food, and what they found out, it cost them nothing. Everything they had was free. They got all their money back. When they started opening up the sacks, the money was laying on top of every sack, inside, of course. But rather than seeing all the blessings, you know what they were saying? Like so many of us at times, oh, woe is me. Everything's so miserable. Their attitude, I like to think of as stinking thinking. And their attitude just wasn't right. And in verse 29, they had to face their daddy. And when they told him all that had happened to them down in Egypt, verses 30 down to 35, I didn't read all of it, but let me start with verse 31 now. And we said unto him, talking about the mean man down there that was not good to them, we are true men, we're honest men. We are no spies. We are 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not, in other words, they're saying one is dead. And the younger is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, whereby shall I know that ye are true men? Leave one of your brethren here with me, and take food for the famine of your household, and be gone. And bring your younger brother unto me. In other words, next time you come, I don't want you to come without him. I want you to bring that young man with me. Then shall I know that you're no spies, but that ye are true men. So will I deliver you your brother, and ye shall traffic. Or in other words, you have the run of the land. All you have to do is just bring your brother and prove what you've said to me is true. Verse 35, and it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. Instead of saying, look here, boy, look what's happened to us. We got it all free. All this food we got our money too. And look, the blessings are there. But boy, they didn't see it as blessings, did they? The first thing they done is their imagination started working overtime, just like ours usually does. Instead of seeing the good side, they were seeing nothing but the bad side. They knew something was wrong. This is not right. And so they began to be troubled. But instead of turning to Jehovah God and asking what this was all about, isn't that the first thing that a person should do when things start coming apart, unraveling, and we don't know what to do? Shouldn't we take it to God? We sing about it, don't we? But do we? There's where the hang-up is. Do we? A lot of times we start looking at the negative side, and our attitude is, everything's just going to work out bad for me. I don't have anything good going on. You keep quiet. I knew what was going through her mind. I seen those eyes. I go out in the car, and the tractor won't start. And I go in and I complain. Why not? Why don't it start? I do everything I got. It doesn't work anyway. I go down and buy a brand new battery from a car that wouldn't start. Put the brand new battery in. 3 days later, I go out. It still don't start. So I don't know what. I'm not in the car. Yeah, Rick.
If you do that, then I don't feel so bad.
Go around, kick all 4 tires, and catch the hubcaps with your foot, get hurt. But that's what's going on here. That's the attitude that they're taking. really, now you know, you've read it. You know what's going to happen. And it's going to get good. But to them, it's nothing but bad all the way through. It's just a bunch of, everything's falling on top of me and I can't get out from under it. Now, let's watch how Jacob responded in verse 36. And Jacob their father said unto them, Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not. You know what he's saying? Joseph's dead. And Simeon is not. You know what he's saying? Jim, I wouldn't give you a nickel for Simeon's life. He's dead. And ye will take Benjamin, little Benji, away from me. All these things are against me. You notice that? He didn't say it's all against us. It's against me. Everything's just falling on me. That's all Jacob could see was me. Instead of saying, thank God, for he must have something good in all this. Show us, God, what it is. Shouldn't that be the attitude of we Christians? Whatever happened. Now listen, do we really believe Romans 8:28? For some things work together for good to them that are the called. That's not what it says, is it? It says, for all things work together for good to them that are the called according to his purpose. I remember this preacher telling about going out west someplace to preach a revival message, for a church out there, and he had all of his things he had to take with him loaded down in the trunk, and he was driving through Texas, that's a chore. Anybody ever drove through Texas? You think there's no way that there could be a state that big. He was driving through Texas, and all of a sudden, felt the car, giving this, and had a flat tire. And he thought, why? Why me? I'm going to preach. Why is this happening to me? And so then he started, I've got to take everything out of that trunk to get to my spare, and he's trying to work with this and trying to get it all and watch the clock, because he didn't have a lot of time, like so many, wait till the last moment. And car pulled in and stopped behind him. And he said, sir, I said, you need help. And he said, let me help you. And the preacher, he started working with this guy. And the guy said, just get back, let me take care of this. And he started getting the tire out, putting it on for him, tightening it up, put the hubcap back on. And the preacher said, sir, man, I thank you for being so kind. You're so gracious. He said, let me ask you, where do you go to church? And the man said, oh, I don't go to church. The preacher said, you don't go to church? As nice as you ought to be in church someplace. And the man said, well, I've really thought about it, but I've never really made that decision. And the preacher said he had the opportunity to lead him to Jesus. And when he was driving on down the road, he was thinking, Lord, thank you for a flat tire. Thank you for flattening my tire. All things work together for good. Now there is a catch. To them that love the Lord. To them that are the called according to his purpose. Now the big question is, can we claim that? Can we claim that promise that God's given to us through the mouth of Paul? Absolutely. But the catch is, do we love God? Do we love him? And if we do, whatever the circumstances is, we ought to first ask the question that I believe Jacob should have asked. Show us, God, what this is all about. What's going on here? But we don't read that at all, do we? He should have said, boys, I don't know what God's doing. He has always been with me. I look back through my life. God's always been there. Next month, I'll spend 90 years here. If God lets me get to another month on this earth, and I can look back. And I can say with assurance in my heart, God, you've always been there. I can't think of a time, Lord, when you left me. When I really needed you, you were there. I can stand here tonight and tell you about some places I've been. When my grandson was born, the 40-year-old that just had the heart, and he, by the way, on the 27th, he has to go to a cardiologist and have him checked out. Went into the hospital. He was laying in there, and I went in, and he was screaming and hollering, the little tiny fella. I mean, just months old. See, I had spinal meningitis when I was 10 years of age. And my grandson had spinal meningitis when he was just a few weeks old, months old. I stood there and watched him suffer. And oh, God help him. God help him. I took him home. And the only way that I could take care of him, I had to lay him down on the floor on a blanket, and I had to lay down over top of him to hold him down because he was screaming and kicking and hollering. I thought about the night when my son-in-law, they called me and told me 3 o'clock in the morning that Dan was down. Would you come get the baby? And I go down and pick up my little granddaughter that's adopted. And I took her out home, threw her in my wife's in bed with my wife, and head back for the hospital. And when I go back in, there stands John Gowdy, pastor at Temple Baptist. He's standing there, shaking his head. I didn't get it. I walked in, there sat his mom, there sat his dad, and there sat my daughter. She's in my son's arms, and I think, what's going on? I sat down, I said, Joyce, what's this? She said, Dan's gone. Dan's gone. No, it can't be. It can't be. But it was. I walked the hallway in the Old Mercy Hospital. My daughter-in-law, my son's wife, the only son I got, his wife laying there, dying of cancer. I see my son standing on the side of her and singing every song. And she just kept saying, sing another one, Eric. Sing another one, Rick. Sing. And she's gone. I walked the hallway praying, oh God, please don't take my daughter-in-law. Don't take my son-in-law. That's the reason why I know some prayers God don't answer. Yeah, but you know what? I look back now, what I started to say. In every situation in my life, God's always been there. I've always come out of it. When my wife was dying, I was walking up down Oliver Road. My daughter was out there taking care of her. I'm going to go into all the details there. Neighbor come out and he said, Don, won't you come in and have a cup of coffee with me? And I said, not now, Larry. My wife's up there dying. And I'm just trying to walk it off. Listen, we all have had those experiences, I know. But I'm just bringing it up to tell you that as you look back, and there's nothing that God has ever put on us that He hasn't provided the grace when we needed it. His grace never fails. Never. Is not this the way that we should have responded? I say that Jacob. I look back and I see how he's brought me this far. I know he's in charge and he's not going to leave me now. Jacob's had a whole line. He's a whole lot older than at this time than I am right now. I mean, he's up in his hundreds. Shouldn't he have learned? He should have been able to take those boys aside, and he should have said, boys, I don't know what God's doing. He's always been with me, and I know he's with me now. Well, I say this is the way that we all are, is it not? When things go bad, we always take that approach and say, God's with me right now, and I know that it's going to be for my good. Let's be serious. We're going through it. That's not the way we do it, is it? I'm afraid not. But I'm talking about our negative attitude. Think about what has happened this past week in your life. Maybe not this past week, but over the past weeks, sometime or another, we've been in that place where we've looked on the situation and it's overwhelmed us. All the prime minister asked, that being Joseph, is go get your brother, bring him back down here, and when you do that, the land's yours. You go out here and run all over the place. I know you're not spies if you just go and do what I'm saying. But when they got back home, there was a problem with Jacob. Jacob wasn't the kind of man that he's going to trust God in anything. You see, the question is, how do we respond? That's what this is about for us. And 99% of the time, we're looking at the downside. And I think I'm talking about most of us. Now, let's be honest. Do we have the positive attitude that we should have on everything? Or sometimes is our attitude that of negative? God, you must be trying to ruin me. I go home from work one night right after Mildred and I got married, trying to find a job. I finally got a job at the mill, come home, and walked in the house, and Mildred was crying. She said, Don, the house caught fire, burned the wall out over top of the stove, and said almost burnt the house down. She said, I'm scared to death. The neighbor come and helped me get the fire out. I said, honey, it'll be okay. Went to work that night. Come back home, or not that. No, I come in all afternoon turn, and I had to go back out the next morning, and went out and before that it was 2 days before Christmas. And I was coming out of Portsmouth, and Mildred dropped a spool of thread, went underneath my foot, and I reached down to get it. And when I looked back up, it was too late. I hit a car, drove it into a car, that drove into another car, that went into another car. I tore up 5 cars. I called my insurance, and you see, I just got out of the service when I got out of service in just right before that. I got out in April, but I thought I had insurance. But when I left Illinois, my insurance, they canceled it. And I didn't know it. I was ruined. Never got out of that. Well, I'm here. I did. Then, a couple nights later, when the house caught fire. I didn't have a car. It was tore up. It's totaled, as a matter of fact. We wasn't hurt. Nobody else was hurt. But my dad brought he come down and got me and took me up. And he had a ton truck. And I come down and I turned the key off. I pulled it in the driveway, and I should have turned it, I think, straight up and down. But I turned it all the way off where the radio was. Because I had to go out to work in the next morning, and I was going to drive a truck. You just can't make this kind of stuff up. I got up that morning. I thought, well, I seen what I'd done. I thought, well, if I can I had just a little way off my driveway, and I thought if I can just get this thing started, maybe it'd give me enough that I could choke it with the clutch. Start it with the clutch. I pushed it back and it didn't start. But guess what? I was across the highway there on Bonser Run. I look up and here comes a guy down the road. And I take off running, and I'm standing out in the middle of the road trying to flag him down, and he thought I was going to do damage to him. So he just almost barreled me down. I jumped out of his way, and he was looking back at me, come right around, smack right in the side of my dad's truck. Like I said, you can't make these things up. I was a Sunday school teacher in this church. I was a deacon. I had it all. I think I had 5 offices in this church. I go home that Saturday night. I had to teach the next morning. And I told Mildred, I said, you go on to bed. I'm going to stay up, study my Sunday school lesson. I doubt if I'm going to bed tonight. And I sat down and opened up my Sunday school quarterly, and right across the top of the quarterly, it says, worry is sinful. You know what? I don't care what problems we have, how big our problems are. God's bigger than our problems. I can promise us all that. You see, Jacob not only reacted negatively, he really overreacted. He said in verse 36, notice what he said, Joseph is dead, Simeon is dead, and all these things are against me. And here Jacob is. He's supposed to be the leader of the family. He's supposed to be trusting God. And what's he doing? He's falling apart. Now let's look at Reuben's response in verse 37. Here's his boy Reuben. He comes up, he's got the answers. Reuben spake unto his father, saying, Dad, listen, I tell you what, slay my 2 sons, if I bring him not to thee, and I will bring him to thee again. Now, isn't that about the smartest thing you ever heard? I want to tell you what, that man was just bordering on the side of stupidity. He goes to his daddy, and he said, I tell you what, Dad, you let me take Benji with me, and we're going to go down there, and if I don't bring him back with me, if they kill him, and if I don't make it back, you just kill my 2 boys. Isn't that smart? Dad, if I lose your son, you just kill my 2 sons, which happen to be his grandsons. You don't get any, you can't make this kind of stuff up either. That's about the dumbest thing that you could find. And if it is negative, do we, and I include myself here, because I already told enough about myself, know the reason why we see it as such? It's because we're looking at our situation rather than at our God. And that goes in every situation. Jacob not only reacted negatively, he really overreacted, or as soon as he heard, he fell apart. Now Reuben's making such stupid. With Reuben's senseless, negative suggestion, listen to Jacob's careless remarks. The whole family seemed to be nuts. I'll just tell you that right now. Jacob said, you cannot take my son down there with you. He goes on with, his brother is dead. I take it that that's what he's saying. He's not. He's gone. And he is, well, let me read verse 38. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way in the which ye go, then shall ye bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. And again, he's talking about the personal pronoun there, my. That's all we see. And now we move on into chapter 34 or 43. Jacob stubbornly, finally, he gets to the place where he's going to have to give in. Let's see what it says. And the famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the corn, which I don't think took them very long to do, they brought out of Egypt. Their father said unto them, go again and buy us a little food. Now Judah is going to enter in. And you see, Jacob's stubbornness has led to the inevitable. Their food is gone. The response was that the boys couldn't go because Jacob, the leader, he won't go. He won't let them go. And we're told here that we can't go and we won't go unless we take Benjamin with us. But Jacob was still in denial, and Judah tried to shake his father out of that denial. With the man said, that man down there, he said. Now watch how Jacob responded with by the blame game. I said it this morning. I'll say it again tonight. Verse 6 of this chapter 43. And Israel, that's Jacob, said, wherefore dealt ye so ill with me as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And they said, the man asked us strictly of our estate and our kindred, saying, is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of those words. Could we certainly know that he would say, bring your brother down? Now listen to what Jacob does here. This is good. It's not good, but listen to it. And Judah said unto Israel, his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou, and also our little ones. We're out of food. We're going to starve to death, Dad. Unless we go, it's over. We're history. That can't be. But now notice what goes on. I will be surety for him. Of my hand shalt thou require him, if I bring not unto thee, and set him before thee, then let me bear the blame forever. Don't you like that attitude better? Judah said it right. Listen, we've got to do something, Dad. And listen, I'll take the blame. He's not saying here it's all me and woe is me and all that. But he said, I'll take the blame. Just blame it on me. If anything falls through on this, put it to my account. I'm going to take care of everything that I have to. We got to go get some food. Now, he put it on the line. You cannot continue to delay and deny the situation. He said, Dad, we have got to go and get something or we're going to die. Then he makes that remark. So Jacob reluctantly, he gives in verses 11 and 12. And I'm ready to quit now. And their father Israel said unto them, if it must be so now, do this, take of the best fruits of the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm, a little honey, and spices, and myrrh, and nuts, and almonds, things that they don't have down in Egypt. We got them around here. Take them and go. Where have we heard that before from the mouth of Jacob? Can you think back? Huh? Esau, yeah, okay. When he's going to meet Esau, he was scared to death. So he takes half his flock almost and sends it ahead of him for a present to his brother. In other words, what's he trying to do? He's trying to pay. He's trying to buy. Instead of simply asking God to take care of the situation, no, he's going to take care of it. He's going to buy his way into freedom. What's his name mean? Jacob. Huh? Surplanter. And what does that mean? Trickster. He's still old Jacob. Even though God's changed his name to Israel, he still got that old fleshly way about him. Well, he's saying about that man down in Egypt, because they don't know who it is, maybe it was a mistake, and maybe he just put that in our sacks, that money in our sacks. It somehow got back in there. But you take it, you take all of these gifts, and you go back. In verses 13 and 14, Jacob starts out good. Look at verse 13. Take also your brother and arise and go again into the man. Now verse 14. And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your brother and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. We find that word bereaved another place. Would anybody happen to know where it might be? Let me just quote part of it. If I perish, I perish. Esther. That's the same word, same Hebrew word. But like Esther said, if I'm going to perish, I'm going to perish, but this is our only hope. And Jacob's saying the same thing. And there's nothing wrong with what he says here until we get to verse 15. Now look, and I promise you we are going to quit here. And the men took the presents, and they took double money in their hand, and Benjamin, and rose up and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. He started out talking about God, but then he opened up his old flesh again and said, God don't do something. If we perish, we're just going to perish. There's nothing else we can do about it. Well, let me close by this. I want you to listen to him. If he would have stopped with verse 13, it would have been great, but he had to add verse 14, and you see the flesh coming back. I wonder what his sons talked about when they was headed down, and now they're leaving Canaan. They're leaving home. They're going in the other direction. Can't you imagine their hearts and how they're feeling? And we're going to walk in to a hornet's nest. What do you think they talked about? Well, let me just ask this question in closing tonight. I said this morning in my message that every page we ought to be able to find Jesus. Where's Jesus in all this? Yeah, and why they did.
do the same physically, they saw that the Lord was
You think God wasn't taking care of them? And who is the God's taking care of them? It's Jesus Christ. You know where he's at? He's down in Egypt. They didn't know it, but he's down there in Egypt. And he's looking out for them. He's going to take care of them. He's not going to let them die. And you what? As God's children, he's watching out for us. And he's not going to let us die either. Do we believe that? I mean, we can't die. Did you know that? Every one of us that has been born again, we cannot die. We might die physically, but that's as far as death can go with us. We're not going to die spiritually because we have security in Christ Jesus. Now listen to me. Brenda and I was back there praying earlier tonight, and we're praying concerning the situation of our country. I'd like to see a revival in this church, wouldn't you? At what cost? How much are you willing to have a revival? Remember 9/11? What happened? Churches started filling up. Let one bomb land on this nation of ours, and I want to tell you something, churches will be full. And I've said this many, many times. I say I want a revival, but do I want it bad enough that I'm willing to pay the price for it? I've got some things that's really troubling to me, and some of you have too, because I know some of them. How much are you willing to have that corrected? Trip to the funeral home or the hospital? You see, God can give us a revival, but he's not going to give us a revival at bargain basement prices. They're going to come about at a cost. And God may have to reach down and take maybe the apple of our eye. Somebody that we hold so dear to us might have to be taken away from. Oh, no, Don, we don't want that. We don't want to see a bomb land on America. There's some things that we may not be able to prevent. And I've told you some of my problems. I've given up two of the most precious, a son-in-law and a daughter-in-law. I couldn't have gone out and picked my children a better mate. I remember Rick, let me just tell you this. We're standing in Donna's house, her mother and dad's house, because that's where she was at. They wouldn't let my boy off from work. They made him work. And I got a phone call from Dr. Trinidad, not Trinidad. It was the doctor she worked for. Well, anyway, he called me up and said, Don, can you meet me at Donna's house? And I said, yeah, I'll meet you there, doctor. He said, get Rick and bring him. And I knew it wasn't going to be good news. I got there with Rick. I got called Jim Brown. Matter of fact, I went down and picked up Jim Brown. And I said, Jim, I don't have a pastor. I'm going to face something I don't want to face. I need your support, brother. I need somebody behind me praying. I knew what the answer was going to be. And the doctor came and he walked in after we got there. Matter of fact, we stayed outside. We didn't go in until the doctor got there. And I could see Donna sitting there, her mother sitting on the side, and the nurse sitting on the other side of her, which happened to be one of the nurses that was with me when Mildred died. And there they sat. And doctor sat down and he said, Donna, I got bad news. The cancer has gone off into your lymph nodes. And Donna's sitting there with a smile on her face. sitting there with a smile on her face, as big as Texas. And he said, Donna, you don't understand. She said, no, doctor, you don't understand. He said, Donna, I'm telling you, you don't understand. And Donna looked over at him, and she said, doctor, and by the way, she worked for him. She said, doctor, here's what you don't understand. You see, you're not in control. God is. And we're praying that God will heal me. And if he don't, I'm going to a better place. And I will be healed. And she says, if he don't heal, and by the way, I turned that around. At first she said, God can heal me. And if he does heal me, Rick there is going to have a better wife. And then she said, if he doesn't heal me, he can go out and find a better wife. 28 years ago. He hasn't found a better one yet. And I've said this many times. I don't think there's a better one out there, because he never did find another one. He sat over to my house last night, and every time he walks out that door, I know he's going home by himself. Spend another night by himself. It's been going on this way for 28 years. You think it don't hurt, Dad? Sure it does. But I still believe that God's in control. God knows what he's doing. He don't make mistakes. Well, Rick can't bring Donna back like David and his little baby. Rick can say, I can't bring her back, but I can go to where she is. And that's what we feel about her. Any questions?